Good morning, good afternoon, and evening, baseball fans. Welcome back to the Barstool Baseball Show. This is Friday. It is Carl. I am joined by Chris Castellani, as always, on Fridays. And we have a special guest in the house to talk about the debacle on the south side of Chicago, White Sox, Dave. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, fellas.
Obviously, we wish it was under better circumstances with the White Sox, not what we planned when we originally started baseball podcasting many years ago. Castellani, you're going to have some great perspective for this, and hopefully the internet holds up. I think this is a joke the audience is getting in on now. You look grainy, but you sound excellent.
That's a step in the right direction. As somebody who works for a media company, I think we're making strides here for sure.
Yeah, hey, biggest story is Dave bought the company back for $1. We spent a lot of time bitching about front offices, owners, cheap free agents. A $1 purchase of Barstool. This is in the Thomas Jefferson, Louisiana purchase territory, at least from my end of the table. I don't know if you guys could offer your insights into this.
I don't have any insights to offer because I don't know how money works outside of how to spend it. But it seems like, my dumb brain tells me that when you sell something for $551 million to be exact, and then buy it back like months later for $1, that's a pretty good and pretty sound financial choice you made. So I think that Dave Portnoy did well, and I have been letting cunt, ass, bitch fly all over the place because I don't have to watch myself anymore, and it feels great.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
boy.
I mean,
say cunt. It'll feel good.
Cunt's a fantastic word. I love
best.
I love cunt. But no, I mean, look, I feel similar, man. I mean, look, what's weird is Penn was in charge when I arrived here, but I've always seen Dave as the boss. Like so in a lot of ways, like that hasn't really changed. I mean, look, man, I just want to work here. That's all I want. But it was great to see the vibes and be what they were, and hopefully that continues. And we got Mincy back, so that's that made me very happy.
Well, that warms the baseball coverage. We lost Mincy at a critical time.
We did.
We lost Mincy at a critical time as the SEC tournament was starting. There was a lot of momentum, and so I talked to him for a minute yesterday at the bowling tournament. This trophy's too big to see this if you're on YouTube. Obviously, thank you for subscribing. And it quick with Mincy was just like, baseball coverage is back. You're on it. We need you on it. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Welcome back, Mincy. Again, this is Barstool Baseball. It's the Friday show. We're going to talk about the White Sox. Dave's with us because it's so bad. Each time you look at a new story that comes out with the White Sox, whether it's Tim Anderson getting knocked out, the stuff going on in the clubhouse, Grandal, slapping people around. It's such negativity that we want to bring in our local expert. What's going on? We put together for some questions on that. Before we get in the White Sox, though, there's some stuff going on around the league I'd like to get your takes on. Great stuff from Lorenzen, stuff going on with the Mariners. Obviously, a couple big injuries in the AL East. But I want to start with the standings. And just out of curiosity, we have 3 of the 6 divisions. I think there's like 3 decent races going on. AL East between the Orioles and the Rays. The NL Central with the Brewers, the Reds, and the Cubs. And then obviously the AL West with the Rangers and the Astros. Castellani, I'm going to start with you. Which one of these 3 races do you think is going to be the best by the end of September?
I've felt this way, honestly, since May, early June, AL West. Because I love that these teams really don't like each other and these fan bases really don't like each other. These teams being, of course, the Rangers and Astros. I love that element to it. I love the storyline and the narrative of the team that has been, I know the COVID year the A's won it, but the team that has been the top dog in that division for 6-7 years, and the one team that threw their hand to the ring, that's gone out and spent, that had a bunch of all-stars, that is trying desperately to hold on to that divisional lead. That to me is the one that I think, I've compared it to last year's NL East. I think we're going to be talking with 3 games left. This thing will still be undecided. So I think that one's is the most interesting race to me.
Yeah. Dave, I don't know. Do you agree with the AL West? Do you give a shit about the AL West? Do you think the AL East? Do you think the Rays have enough to go fight with the Orioles? Do you give a shit about the Orioles pitching staff at this point?
I don't give a shit about baseball at this point, which we'll get to, momentarily. But It's not that I care very deeply about baseball. I love baseball.
It's a good thing to say on a baseball podcast.
But we're teeing up the segment we're going to get to with the White Sox is going to tee this up appropriately because it is a good look inside the mind of a White Sox fan.
It's not that I'm just mad at the White Sox, which I'm beyond livid with the White Sox in every single way you can be livid with someone or something about. I'm mad at baseball as a whole over the last few years. It's gotten worse, I think. Obviously, rules changes. We've talked about all that on various podcasts. Have made the game itself better, but like baseball, how it runs as a whole, it makes my stomach like get all queasy. I hate a lot of people in baseball right now. But do
you hate the rule change? Do you hate the rule changes?
No, I like the rule changes are fantastic. I forgot that there were rule changes at this point.
You're talking about like a Matrix analogy, like red pill, blue pill. There's baseball fans that like take whatever the pill is where you're just walking around and you see the woman in the red dress. It's like eating a hot dog and enjoying the hot dog and not having a single clue what goes into the hot dog. Like White Sox Dave has made enough sausage to know like this is actually it's bad. Like what's going on with the A's, I would guess, or like just general ownership relations.
It's a war. It's a cold war between players and owners, and like everything political in the year 2023, it's just a lot of finger pointing and just like every day the wedge drives deeper into all those who either are own the teams and the players and the employees against the owners, and they're hurting what is America's pastime. It's like it always will be America's pastime, and it's disheartening. Like when I went to the Dominican with Donnie in February, that was the best baseball I had seen in decades. I had the time of my life down there. Granted, there were major league players like Robinson Cano was playing, Jorge Alfaro, a few major league players, and it was good baseball. But like you were watching it at its purest form, and that meant something to me. You're not doing that when you watch any baseball game for Major League Baseball at this point. Like, how many teams are actually year over year, even with the addition of the extra playoff teams and, the draft lottery and the Latin American and international signing, like it's supposed to be more competitive, but every day it's less competitive. Teams aren't putting winning first, and that drives me crazy. That drives me crazy. They don't put winning first, and that's what it should be. It should be like, I don't know a thing about our soccer. Carl, I know you followed a little bit. They do it right from what I understand in the EPL. I wish that there was some way it would say, if you're not winning, you're fucking gonzo.
Yeah.
You're out. I wish there was a way to do that and really force owners and GMs and players even to put the best product on the field and be the best product and best employee for those teams that you play for that you can be. Now, guys, like we'll get to him in a moment. Like Yoel Makata gets paid and mails it in.
Right?
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Pirates, Cincinnati Reds, Los Angeles Angel. Like, there's so many teams that just don't care about winning World Series. There should be 30 teams competing for the best free agents every single year, not 3 or 5 or 6 or whatever. It drives me crazy. So I'm mad at baseball as a whole for the too long didn't read little.
Yeah, you're an upset baseball guy, and a lot of that I think has to do with how close it hits the home and how bad the situation is, because you are getting the worst end of it with Jerry Reinsdorf and the ownership. I would say Tom Ricketts is closer in the middle where he spent money, but he's still heavily influenced. And I think this is a good opportunity to just say at a very high 30,000 foot level, the ownership structure in Major League Baseball is not what you think it is casually. If you're well versed on it, then you know what I'm talking about. But if you're just casually looking at it and saying our owner's a billionaire and they want to spend and make money and do all this shit, it's a much deeper connection between these owners. And that goes just back to the history of baseball and the 150 years of professional baseball and how these owners have developed and shaped the game. And so now it is, for lack of better words, this boys club that allows John Fisher to buy in for $100 and something million and then ultimately become a billionaire just off the back of this franchise. I do want to stay topical because there's a lot of good stuff here in energy. We're going to tap into it, the White Sox. Topically, though, and just stick with Castellani here, a great owner is John Middleton. We love John Middleton on this show with the Phillies. He went out and traded for your guy, Lorenzen. Lorenzen throws a no-hitter. Is there a spectrum on Phil Humber to Nolan Ryan that you can put this in? Is this close to like, is he like a Cole Hamels in 2017 no-hitter relevancy? Do you think this matters in the long run? Are we going to look back on this no-hitter, or is this one of the more forgettable ones?
I think it matters for him. If I had to rate it on a 1 to 10 scale, I'd put it at like a 6. And we're talking no-hitters. I'm not including perfect games. So I would say like Kershaw's no-hitter in 14 against the Rockies when he was at the height of his powers. If that's a 10, this is probably around a 6. I think it definitely helps. Citizens Bank Park was filled. You know, it's his first home start as a Philly. And that stuff does, make a difference. I mean, they were really celebrating him there. That was a very cool moment. It's a veteran pitcher in what was, I kind of criticized it for a minute, what was an all-star season for him. I think, like most no-hitters, is it something that will be remembered nationally as a moment, the way that, say, maybe Verlander's was or were, the way Kershaw's was? No, but it's a great moment for the team and an awesome moment for the player where when he does, because he's probably approaching close to 10 years of service time now. So when he gets to 10 years of service time, he'll be one of those guys when he inevitably decides to retire. You put it right on his resume, threw a no-hitter with the Phillies. And maybe he won't be there for that much longer because he's a free agent at the end of the year. But really cool moment, but not the earth-shattering seismic baseball moment that some other no-hitter / perfect games have been. But I'm happy for him.
Yeah. I just quickly think that the Philadelphia Philly fans earned this one with the standing ovation from Trey Turner. Now you get rewarded with the no-hitter from Michael Lorenzen. People doubt the baseball gods on this channel. I won't name names, but somebody like Chris Clemmer, who hasn't thrown a fucking pitch in his life, just kidding, I love Clemmer, knows more about baseball than like almost anybody I've ever met in my entire life. That's just a bad, cheap jab at him. But the baseball gods are real. Philadelphia Phillies fans stood up for Trey Turner when he had a 77 OPS plus, and like less than a week later, they get a no-hitter for the guy they just traded for. It's a beautiful fucking sport, boys.
Dave, would you ever give a standing ovation to a White Sox if they were having a bad year?
It depends on the context. Probably not, though. Probably not.
No, I think this is a good example. If the fans at Guaranteed Rate decided before the fight to give Tim Anderson a standing ovation, would you participate?
No.
Right. Okay.
I think standing ovations are very watered down as it is, and they should be reserved for like the specialists of special moments. So no, I'm not going to just go around throwing around standing O's all haphazardly. That's not me. I think you got to earn that. And that doesn't even mean people will earn it like year to year. Like say someone's struggling, like a starting pitcher struggling, he goes 6 1/3, gives up, a run, has 8 strikeouts against a quality team. And it's some rookie. Like, yeah, I'll toss him a standing O, but like, an elongated standing ovation where you're like celebrating a dude's like entirety, you got to earn that from me. Yeah.
No, I'm with you, by the way. Yeah.
But like Lorenzen, I would have given a standing O for sure.
Oh yeah, well that's a personal.
You said baseball's been around 150 years.
He's stuck. Castellani's stuck.
He's good now.
I think I'm good now.
Had a boy. 13-minute mark.
But like 150 years. I got it up right now. There's been 322 big league no-hitters, like dating back to the 1800s. So you're getting a couple a year. Obviously, some years have none, some have 5, whatever. But it's not that rare a feat. But yeah, it's definitely standing O worthy. I'd say it doesn't matter who you are in that instance. If you throw a no-hitter, you're getting a standing O. So yeah. But like Tim Anderson, he's got a little more to earn than having a 3 for 4 day.
Right.
Do you guys say? Hey, here's one, and I would like to agree with Dave on that standing ovation front. Welcome home standing ovation's the easiest one.
Yes.
Standing up for somebody who accomplished something while they're still playing. Standing ovation. I like a starting pitching. Coming out, 7 strong innings on a Saturday afternoon is a great time to get on your feet and cheer. I hate getting on my feet 3-2, 2 outs. Teams
really
hate it. Oh, I hate it.
I think I'm. You're not.
No,
That's not for
I
everybody.
should say. Wait, hold on. When the team's in the field, I like it. When we're at bat, I hate it.
Okay, yeah, no, I get that.
I
fucked that up.
That's fair. But that's like you do that out of habit, and you're standing for the situation more than the player itself.
For sure.
But like trying to anticipate a bases loaded double is tough. Trying to anticipate a bases loaded strikeout is much easier. The odds are in your favor. Okay, I have two more quick headlines before we dig into these White Sox. This one's just really brief here, guys. Do you think it's a bigger injury to the Rays to lose McClanahan? Sounds like he could be out. Or just assume Rodon's fuck, this all bullshit, his foot's toast. Like, do you think the Yankees or the Rays are more toast now because of it? Like toast city?
Rays by far to me, because he was the one thread that they were hanging on to. You could say Glass now, but really when they started the season with Rasmussen, Springs, McClanahan, those three at full health. I mean, the Rays are the World Series favorites in my opinion. McClanahan was the last one they were hanging on to. Forearm issues as well. I mean, not just in terms of the physical injury, but in terms of morale for the team, that's a crusher. Even with Rodon, even if Rodon pitched the way he had the last 2 years, I don't have a whole lot of faith in the Yankees at this point. I think that with the Rays, they go from a borderline World Series contender to a team that I don't think I will pick them to win a playoff series.
Yeah.
It depends on how you look at it. So near term, obviously, McClanahan, Rodon hasn't pitched for New York like hardly at all, and when he has, he's been bad anyways. I saw a picture I don't know, 3-4 days ago. Apparently he's put on a lot of weight over the last year, which is something that he did struggle with prior to his 2021 season with the White Sox. He didn't stay in shape in the offseason, just lived in a tree stand apparently, and just, was eating his fried food and shit, not hitting the weight room like he should. I don't know if that's true or not, but I saw a picture. It's when he's like in his windup. He had the gullet going this current season. Last year with San Francisco, chiseled, jawline nice and pronounced. But McClanahan, like that's a fucking dagger for them. That's a dagger for them. And like Chris said, like they've been fucked by injury all year. And you lose that guy that can completely shut down any lineup in baseball if he's on his game. That hurts. That hurts. On the flip side, long term, you're looking at it, this is year one of Rodon's 6-year deal.
Yeah.
6-year, 160, I want to say, with the Yankees. I mean, he's probably, for all intents and purposes, done this year. Might make another couple of starts, but the Yankees are cooked. They're not making the playoffs. So his season's over. What's he going to be the next 5 years, And Hal Steinbrenner and Cashman, though they obviously have Judge, they have Stanton, Coles, they're all $300+ million deals. That doesn't mean they have spent over mistakes per se. Like you had what's his face, the center fielder. He's on Baltimore now. Why am I blanking on his name?
Aaron Hicks.
He was on a big deal with them, and they didn't pay over him when they realized, like, oh, this guy's not it. They haven't shown that yet. So I don't know if that will hurt them from signing guys long term. I do think they are stuck with them, though, because they're not going to cut bait unless it's like year 4, year 5, year 6. So with their recent history of, not being the George Steinbrenner Yankees, more being the Hal Steinbrenner Yankees, I don't know if this might handcuff them a little bit for the next half decade. It might be bad.
I think a good insight for Rodon is that he hasn't had an opportunity to pitch consistently and get settled with a pitch clock adjustment. And I think once he does make that adjustment, if he is healthy and he gets back to where he can be and pitches at his potential and he's healthy, I think he could be one of those guys who thrives under a pitch clock environment because he can just pump those really tough to hit 4-seam fastballs into his zone.
It takes away the thinking from some guys.
Yeah, when he attacks you, he comes right at you he just gets inside you like a boxer and just.
Yep.
But there would have to be an adjustment period for that. He's kind of a sensitive guy. I don't like that this first year on the deal. It's more than the injury. Him not being out there just adds to like that adjustment process when he does get back. But I would say for purposes, it just McClanahan with the Rays, it's tragic to me because it just seems like the Rays, what is up with them keeping guys healthy, whether they come, they leave. There's for as much data as they have, they should invest in a team of guys that can keep their starting pitching healthy for no other reason than for baseball fans. I'm sick of watching these guys come and go. Like at their height, they could roll out the 1 through 5, just the nastiest dogs, take health off the table. Speaking of rolling 1 through 5 out, the Mariners, this is my last talking point before we get to the White Sox. The Mariners are 9 of their last 10, I believe. They're on a winning streak. They're red hot. They're 10 games above 500. Yeah, they're scorching hot. We've kind of been waiting for this all season. There was a little bit of the sense that they could be hungover early in the season or maybe too confident. They had that big playoff run against, and it wasn't even a run. It was just energetic, great baseball at home, and Jordan Alvarez crushing them on the road. But you had that sense like the Mariners are back. Boom, they come out, they're dragging their feet, they're under 500. Now they've caught fire in the second half. And I saw a thing where all their pitchers, except for Luis Castillo, have been developed. They've got most of their pitchers are guys that they brought up, drafted, developed, traded for, et cetera. And so now they're just rocking and rolling. So I look at this Mariners. The one question I would have before you get to the White Sox is just plainly, do you think this is just a hot streak, or do you think they're going to make the playoffs? Castellani, start with you.
I think they're going to be in this thing until the end. Yeah, because for one, this year is kind of a mirror of what last year was for them. They were 5 games under 500. They won 13 in a row going into the All-Star break. They've been kind of one of those teams that we've never thought the Mariners were bad, but they've been kind of one of those teams that's just been hovering around 500 the entire season. The point you brought up, I think, is the number one reason why I think they're going to be kind of in this thing until we get to the end. They have a very good rotation, and beyond that, they have a very durable rotation. They're kind of the antithesis of what we talked about with the Rays, where the Rays have these great pitchers that keep getting injured, but there's they have 3 guys right now, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, and Luis Castillo, all of whom have ace potential, if not are kind of front of the line guys. They've all started 22 games or more, meaning you're probably going to get 30 plus starts out of 3 guys in your rotation. It's very rare in the modern age that you get that. And also, you're seeing in the second half, at least, Cal Raleigh the last week has been great. J-Rod started to heat up a little bit. I mean, they are one of those teams, and I think they're going to be big players for Ohtani. They're going to be one of those teams that's a little bit frustrating because that huge bat in the middle of the lineup isn't there. But with the way that Service manages the bullpen, their bullpen in general, and that starting staff, I think the deeper a season goes, the more likely you are to succeed if you have durable, good starting pitching. We saw it with Houston a year ago. I think we could see that with Seattle. And when you look at their schedule, I wrote a blog about this today. They got some series coming up against the Royals and the Mets and some not so good teams. They have 2 series against Oakland, a series against the Angels, who they just swept. They can be in this thing. They just got to stay afloat because they do play in a really tough division, but the wild card could be theirs. Yeah.
I'll even add to that as we speak. They are 2 games behind Toronto in the AL wild card, and Toronto is about to lose to Cleveland. There's 3 outs to go in that game. So assuming, and it's 4-3 games. So assuming Cleveland hangs on, I think Classy's he's suspended right now. Maybe not for the fight last week. Because he got.
I think he was out one game, 1 or 3 games. I thought
he'd be back. So assuming he shuts down the door, I mean, they may be a game back tonight.
Okay, so at the time of recording, they're in the hunt. They're that last team out, right?
Yeah, they're the last team out, and assuming the score holds up, there'll be a game and a half, and they play. Who do they play tonight? But like Chris said, you got Teoscar Hernandez, you got J-Rod, Suarez. They don't have a single guy with an 800 plus OPS. The highest on the team is JP Crawford with a 790 OPS, and that's not a guy you're relying on to be your most, your thumper, your big bat. So a lot of these guys, maybe they're due for a little bit of a correction in the right way. And I mean, I haven't been watching Seattle Mariners games over the last week. I do know that they're fucking scorched, like red hot. So maybe, 2 or 3 of those guys throw up a 900 OPS the last month and a half, 2 months of the season. That's a big deal. And then to Chris's point, you need that thumper in the middle of the order. They are a dark horse for me as well to sign Show this winter.
Yeah, so that I cannot wait. We got into a huge argument this week at softball about what the price tag could be for Shohei Ohtani.
What did you say? I was trying to all right. So
I don't want to get. I would say I could do this for an hour. To be fair, I would say 10 years and $65 million a year would be
$150 million. I'm with you.
You have to assume, and my number one thing is you'd have to assume right now any Major League Baseball team would be able to generate over a 10-year period at least $250 new million in the Japanese market that they don't already have. If you sign Shohei Ohtani, for example, the Cubs just rolled out Marquee Network as a streaming service for $20 a month. And I believe that would be available immediately. The Cubs play a lot of 1:20 p.m. games, which is like 5:20 in Japan. So I think there's like a a selling point where they can go back and be like, hey, we could make a fuck ton of money to overspend. How much is he worth? I'm probably closer as a player to 60 million, so I would pay a premium. I would go at him and throw like 10% on top of it.
All right,
but I can see him going to the Mariners, the Dodgers. I don't think he goes to the East Coast. I think the furthest west he would go is Chicago.
I was doing this too, and I'll be very quick, but I was saying 6 years for a pitcher, bringing him to his age 35 season at 30 a pop. So that's 180, and then you're getting at least 10 out of him as the hitter, just on a contract, not saying he'll be good when he's 40, at 35 a pop. So that was like the simple math I used. So I would guess 10 at like, and you're going to have sweeteners on top. I would guess 10 at like 55, 57.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised until it gets over 70 million a season. Then I would be surprised. I'd say, holy shit. But I could see the Dodgers because I think the Dodgers are stalking this in a position where they expect him, but they'd be willing to bid up with whatever they need to bid up for him.
I would assume
certainly definitely interesting. The last thing I want to say about the Mariners too, before we get out of this, is that clearly this is a race for the 6th playoff spot in the American League. And as we kind of get to the end of the season, I want baseball fans to keep this in mind. There's going to be one team from the AL Central. You're guaranteed the Rangers and the Astros, almost I should say guaranteed that they're going to compete with each other to put themselves in the playoffs. The Orioles and the Rays seem like they're going to compete with each other. And then is it going to be could the Blue Jays get hot? Could the Red Sox, could they turn their shit around at the last second? But really you're starting to see like the Angels have been atrocious since the trade deadline. So it is really there for the Mariners taking to compete with the Blue Jays for that 6th spot in maybe more expanded playoffs. Okay. That's a different conversation. I want to talk about the White Sox with White Sox Dave here. We've gone a little bit long. This is good baseball talk, though, boys. I like getting this crew together. I like doing this on Fridays. And Dave, I guess the first thing I would want to start with the White Sox is, I want to approach this from the perspective of, a lot of people listening to this are not with you day to day and don't really understand the state of the White Sox. More is just kind of like a national embarrassment. So I want to bring your perspective into this. So is there like an analogy you can give us? The first part I'd say is like a 2-parter. Like, how would you explain this to a moron who doesn't know shit about baseball? Like, what's a real life analogy for White Sox fans here?
Okay, this is one. It's not the organization as a whole, but this is one that I thought was both funny and a perfect analogy. So, in the year 2023, when everything is politicized, you saw like you see all the press clippings from the daily presidential briefings or whatever with the press secretary. It doesn't matter if it was Trump's press secretaries or the current chick with Biden. They're just, everybody hates their fucking guts no matter what. They're the press secretary. That is basically Rick Hahn at this point. Rick Hahn, you're not hearing from the president himself, rarely, obviously, Jerry Reinsdorf, and then you're not hearing from the other guy, Kenny Williams. Rick Hahn is just, whenever there's an issue, he's the one, fed to the wolves. He's the White Sox press secretary. Everybody wants his head on a stake, like he's Joffrey Baratheon putting Ned Stark's head on in season 1 of Game of Thrones. It's very bad. He obviously knows how bad it is himself. No one knows it better than he does. And he still regularly has had to face the media, whether it's an on-the-field embarrassment or an off-the-field embarrassment, which happens way too frequently with the team. And anytime he opens his mouth, he could say, like, the sky is blue. People will be like, I can't believe he fucking said that. What the fuck is this guy? Fire his ass into the fucking sun, blah, blah, blah. It's very bad.
Where are you on that when you listen to him then? Are you one of those people, or do you kind of see it differently?
You have to. I do think Rick Hahn could be successful in an organization where he is allowed to be the freely operating general manager or VP of baseball operations, whatever. Under the current setup, obviously he's failed. He did have a $190 million payroll, whatever it was last year. This year it was a little less. Whatever it was still dwarfed the next highest in the AL Central. Like he has the budget to financially bully all these flyover state bullshit loser organizations that reside in the AL Central with him. He failed at that. Failed very, very badly. Now, and that's like, hindsight's 2020. Everybody loved the extensions when they signed them, but similar to, and it's a little bit of a stretch, but similar to the Carlos Rodon thing, where they won't pay over a bad signing like they didn't do with. They're not going to do, I don't think, with Rodon, and they didn't do with Hicks. They never had a plan B, because, and I've said this a million times, when you sign one of those pre-arbitration extensions, that's a team friendly or a player friendly deal until you outperform, until you're a good player. Yoel Moncada has been just a complete and total fucking bust. I don't give a shit about his injuries. Eloy's constantly hurt, and he hasn't been that good. He's been whatever. Anderson's for the most part worked out, but Moncada's going to make $25 million next year. Eloy's getting 18, 19. All these guys, if those gambles that you took when you offered those extensions didn't work out 4 or 5 years down the road, you have to have a plan B, and plan B is paying over those guys. Because you're not getting rid of them. You're not Yoel Moncada is the most untradeable player in baseball right now. He fucking sucks, and he's going to make $25 million almost next year. So what are you going to do? You're not going to pay him to be a utility guy under Jerry Reinsdorf's watch. So you have to play them, or you could pay elsewhere. Right field and second base has been a hole for 2 decades. There is plenty of right field and second basemen available that are quality big league players. They go out and sign Josh Harrisons of the world. Or, they try to catch lightning in a bottle, or move Gavin Sheets out there, who's never played the outfield in his entire fucking life. It's from top to bottom. Ownership. I mean, there's a Reddit thread going around. It's being sent to me every 10 minutes where a White Sox fan's trying to organize a sell the team day, similar to what they did in Oakland a few months back. He's
it's not going to work. That shit isn't going to work. And that's crazy. Anybody who sees that stuff and doesn't know the outside yet.
He's so stubborn and stuck in his archaic ways that it doesn't matter. That's why I'm not all gung-ho about doing it, because it's not going to accomplish anything. I don't think, aside from I don't know, you'll probably make SportsCenter or something, whatever. You'll see the clips on ESPN. That's not going to change how Jerry Reinsdorf operates. That's how he's operated for 40 years in both basketball and baseball. And then Kenny Williams, how many organizations out of the 30 in baseball don't have a president of baseball ops at this point?
Good point. Yeah.
Is it only the White Sox? I feel like it's only the White Sox.
Well, doesn't Kenny function as president?
He's the executive vice president, yeah, but he's not the president. It starts with Han, goes to Kenny, and then goes to Jerry, and it's 3 different cooks in the kitchen. We've seen it with the managerial hires. Obviously, this one completely failed, and that was Han's guy. The last one completely failed, and that was Jerry's guy. How many teams that they say that they're going for it, they're trying to win World Series, go through 3 managers in 4 years? How many teams that are failing year over year, like the White Sox, but Kansas? How often do you see a Kansas City or a Cincy or a Pittsburgh go through 3 managers in 4 years? You never see that.
Yeah.
The White Sox, you do though. They don't do anything correctly. Be it from Latin Americans. They just gave the fucking Dodgers more money to spend on Latin American talent because they don't fucking sign. They don't use all their allotted pool space. It's go and fucking find that diamond in the rough for $30,000 down in the Dominican and groom him to be a quality big leaguer. They don't do it. The player development's been bad. At least they haven't developed anybody that's turned out any good aside from unless a player is an exception to that rule. And then the big league roster, as bad as they bungled the construction of the roster, the players have all fucking stunk too.
Yeah.
There was one guy, 2 guys. Obviously, Luis Robert has been nothing short of fantastic all year. I think he's leading the AL in bombs. If it weren't for Ohtani, he'd be right there in the MVP race. And then Jake Berger, who they just dealt. Those are the 2 guys that consistently showed up day in and day out. And even if they failed, they were going down, throwing punches while doing it. Then you get to the off the field embarrassments. You have, going back to 2016 where Sale cut up the jerseys, the La Russa DUIs the day after they hired him, the embarrassment that was the Machado and Harper chase. oh, they just got to stay healthy, and then they could have taken those deals. They didn't think they'd be healthy. Fuck off. Just give them $300 million, losers. Then, there was the stretch from the start of 2021 till the Cornfield game in 2022, where they were actually, or 2021 through like a little bit last year maybe, where they were fun, energetic, and engaging in a cool team. And somewhere along the way, the clubhouse went to straight shit. That's on the players, I think. Mostly, you're all grown men. You shouldn't need a fucking manager holding your hand saying this is how you play baseball the right way. In when you're a 25-year-old, fuck all that too. Like, take it upon yourselves. Nobody did anything right. They're all failures. The entire front office has to go. I'm talking Kenny Williams, Rick Hahn, Jeremy Haber, Chris Getz. You have to, like, they said they went scorched earth for the last rebuild. They didn't. They need to start over with everybody in everything. And
is this from the perspective of to be competitive or to maintain accountability with White Sox fans? Like, are you coming at this to be like, listen, we got to fucking take a step back, start rebuilding this thing, be realistic? Or is step one, listen, we need to be accountable. I want heads rolling. Get these motherfuckers out the door. We need to reset the tone. It sounds like you're closer to like, we need to reset the tone before we even put a button on another trade or anything. Get these fucking bums out of here. But is it even realistic to consider Kenny Williams going out the door? Is it even realistic for White Sox fans?
I mean, for the first time over the last month or so, I think if you would have asked me in, like, I would say June 30th and prior, I would have said Rick Hahn will 1,000% be the GM heading into the winter in the 2024 season. If you ask me now, I think that there's a good shot that he will not be. And it's not from anything I've heard or anything like that. It's mostly he's kind of alluded to it a little bit in his press secretary press conference.
He may not want the job. He may step out.
He might want to go elsewhere.
Yeah, like he doesn't have to be here and take this shit.
People are like, oh, who would trust him to be like he would have a job in 2 seconds if he resigned or got fired.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have to be worried about his kids not be going to college and shit like that. He would be just fine. He would have a job yesterday. But like it's very clear that he hasn't been able to use the budget allotted to him to put together not just like a competitive roster, but like a team that doesn't embarrass you. And this team embarrasses White Sox fans. I've boycotted the team to the point where I don't even watch them on TV. I don't. I'll flip them on for
I don't blame you.
But
I've heard more from Chicago guys that have started to pay attention to the Cubs. And I'm talking friends. You know, like, I'm not talking about DMs and like the internet. I'm talking about real world fucking White Sox friends in my life from the south side of Chicago that are like, yo, dude, Dansby Swanson's sick. Like, you're watching the game? Like, yes, I need to watch some competitive baseball. And I'm willing to put my bias aside to watch a decent fucking team in the city. So my point in that is it's just at a different level than I've seen before with resentment from White Sox fans. It's at its absolute height. I do want to do this. I do want to ask this real quick because the man in the middle here, Castellani, in a perfect world, you're a GM. I know you've GM'd plenty of fake Tigers teams in Excel spreadsheets over the year. So assume assume Jerry Reinsdorf cleans house. They hire Castellani, White Sox Dave's director of fucking scouting and player personnel or whatever. Objectively, once we get over kind of this angst, like what would be one or two or a couple moves from an outsider perspective, expert analysis that you would do to turn things around for the White Sox?
You know, and this is such a meathead fucking take, but Hahn himself has said we got, like, prior to this season, like back in when spring training started, he goes, I know we have a lot to do to earn back the trust of our fans. You want one way to do it? Well, you just traded 2 starting pitchers. You don't have any starting pitchers even on the precipice or close to it in the minors. You need a right fielder. You need a lefty fucking thump. Not that he would play right field, but you need a lefty thump in your lineup. Go and sign Shohei because you can. I don't want to hear that you can't. You can. Now, I'll stop there because it's never in a million years going to happen. But that would be one way to fucking earn the fans'
Right.
trust back. Because you said you were going to be a destination for those blue chip guys. All right, well, you got the blue chip guy sitting here as a free agent. Go and fucking get him. And Shohei's a weirdo in a good way. He's a weirdo.
Okay.
I think if the Sox offered him like $2 billion a year, like over 20 years for 400 billion or whatever it would add up to, I don't know if he would take it because he wouldn't trust it. Like, he wouldn't just be walking into another LA Angels situation, where
Right.
maybe they're fucking 500 here and there. Maybe they compete for the division. Like, I don't think he would trust that the White Sox could do that. But no, you got to trade Cease. You have to trade Cease because you are not competing next year. There is not unless you sign I haven't looked at free agents because it doesn't matter to me at this point. But unless you sign the best 2 free agents available, starting pitchers, the best right fielder available, best second baseman available, and then fill in the gaps. That's the only way you are maybe competing. I don't understand where they think.
So you're looking at it. Okay, so White Sox Dave's is saying in 2024, there's stuff to do this winter to shore things up, to turn it around and start competing right now. That's what you would do.
No, I'm saying that's what they're saying they're going to compete next year, but I don't see how that's possible with the constraints that they operate under.
They'd have to go to such extreme ends,
exactly,
in free agency,
so
right? You'd have to start with players, and so then let me ask, let me ask Castellani this: would you trade Luis Robert?
Yes. Yeah, and I love
trade
Luis.
Dylan Cease.
Yes, I think you have to do it. What's that?
He's the one player I would not trade because he's so controlled.
I get what you're saying, and I love him as a player, but the fact is, the one thing the White Sox did right post 2016 and into the 17 deadline was it was a full unloading. The only guy they didn't unload was Anderson, who was a rookie in 16 and still really coming into his own in 17. I think the whole idea of keep this guy around and maybe hope to build something around him is, the Los Angeles Angels have proven that that's not a thing. You got to build your core. I think the only way to do that is to unload your best assets. Do I think Robert would probably go somewhere and thrive? Yeah, he's an insane talent. I think he's, in terms of overall talent, one of the 3 to 5 most, important players in baseball. Legitimately, I think he's incredible. But I don't really see the purpose in holding on to him for another year when you're going to trade Cease. You're probably going to have a 95 loss ball club next year, maybe 90 loss ball club. I think you have to sell when the iron's hot and when the ceiling is the highest. I think that might end up being the best course of action for him right now. And it sucks. I've dealt with the same shit with the Tigers, but I don't see a pathway in which this team can be really good with Luis Robert still on the roster.
Yeah, that's I don't disagree with you. It's that I think that due to the team control of Luis Robert, you can build a team that stomps the rest of the division, and it shouldn't take 4 or 5 years. It should only take, realistically, I think 2025. Because then, Moncada's off the books, Anderson's gone. You're back to bare bones financially, and you got the Cease trade, which should return someone. You got multiple top, with the draft lottery, 3 to 6 picks probably for the next 2 years. And they did get a good influx of talent with the trades they just made and the last draft, I think. So I would hold on to Robert personally. But at the same time, I've seen this movie before, so I assume they're going to waste Luis Robert, which is a shame, not just for the White Sox, but it's a shame for baseball. You might not ever see him on the big stage.
But that is a valid point. You may not, and it is a shame, but we're under the look, we got to solve this problem, man.
Yeah,
We're solving this problem right now. So we're saying that Luis Robert in center field, you have Benintendi for 4 more years, whether you like that or great. Inside clubhouses, he's loved and respected.
Yeah,
he can show up and give you a fine season. Andrew Vaughn at first base seems like he's somebody they like to hang on to, gives you quality at bats. He can be better. He probably will get better over the course of his career. Will he be like a Paul Konerko? No, he won't. I know that was the hope, but it doesn't seem like he's going to be that guy. But then you're right. It opens up the door for second base and shortstop. So Colson Montgomery, if he could be a second baseman, would be very interesting. If you could just say, listen, we'll go sign a premier shortstop. And that's what the Cubs did with Nico Horner and Dansby Swanson, where I was hammering this drum. Fucking stop making Nico play his dick off to be the 20th best shortstop. Let him go be a top 10 second baseman.
Yeah.
And then go sign somebody. I think that could be a good move, bringing up the Montgomery kid. And then third base. Maybe they go out and sign a Matt Chapman this offseason as a good fit on the south side. I mean, there's a couple pieces here if you wanted to compete in 2025 and maybe try and win 85 games next year.
But you know exactly how they – I don't disagree. So I have heard through the grapevine that that Montgomery, if go look up his stats, they're like – the kid is special offensively. I've also heard that he's not a shortstop, but you do know with certainty, especially considering Tim Anderson has really struggled at times defensively. You know that because they know shortstops demand such a premium in free agency, they would rather go and have instead of putting Montgomery at third or second, where he probably belongs, they're going to play him at short and then go and try to sign the cheaper second baseman instead of doing it the other way around.
But we are talking about this from the perspective of what would be the smart thing to do, but you're saying it doesn't even matter because they're just going to fucking do it anyways. This is what they've typically done.
I mean, Anderson should have been playing second base fucking years ago.
Mark DeRosa didn't take too much time on that. Castellani, if you are rebuilding then and looking at the left side of the infield, like, how do you size up a rebuild with shortstop and third base, and how would you shore it up with the White Sox? You have your choice. One can be a free agent, one can be kind of like a value play. Where would you put more value, third base or shortstop?
Oh, man, that's a good question. You know what? In the modern age, I'm actually going third base. I think that when you look at the current construction of a lot of major league rosters, third base, I think, has become a more important position for a lot of teams. I think that today, there are still a lot of very good shortstops, but when I look around the league at the franchise players, the Jose Ramirez of the world, Arenado, Bregman, I mean, there's been some. I think that position more so than ever has, and maybe Scott Rowland was a guy who kind of maybe started this trend a little bit of like, why can't our third baseman hit 30 home runs a year? Why can't our third baseman be more than just a really good glove guy with a 750 OPS? I think that right now in the modern age, that position, and I think it's what they tried. Now it failed. It's what they tried to do with Moncada after 19, where it's like, we think this guy could be a stud, 900 OPS. They signed him to the extension. I mean, he got MVP votes that year and immediately fell off a cliff. I think right now that's the position that is probably becoming a little bit more valuable. I mean, we've had multiple third basemen win MVPs or compete for MVPs. It's been a while since there might be one I'm really missing. I think it's been a long time since the shortstops won an MVP at least in the American League.
I would have to go back to Jimmy Rollins is the last one I can think of in the National League.
Yeah, it was 07. Yeah. I mean,
it's so demanding, and that's a lot. I know that's what made A-Rod so special when he just completely changed the way people looked at the position. Obviously, Cal Ripken revolutionized it from the sizing standpoint, but hitting 40-something home runs, stealing X amount of bags, and playing that position every day, because it is just such a fucking grind. The plays you have to make take so much out of you.
It's demanding.
White Sox Dave, I want to thank you for jumping into Barstool Baseball. There is one last thing before we go. I'm going to start this with Castellani, and then we're going to go to Dave. I think Ozzie Guillen, and I'm not even joking, it would be a good story to bring him back in the dugout. Castellani is an outsider. Do you think that's too ridiculous?
Dude, not anymore. Okay, when they were after I think they fired Robin Ventura, I was like, no, don't do it. I get it. I understand the appeal. But here's the thing, is that I think as long as Reinsdorf owns the White Sox, chaos will always ensue in some capacity. Ozzie Guillen is the only guy who knows, don't try to stop the chaos, embrace the chaos. Because it's not like you hear stories about the 05 White Sox, fucking Burley's getting drunk before closing down Game 3 of the World Series. It's like, they've gotten in at least one fight, I remember, with the Cubs, probably a few others. Like, he knows it's going to be wild, it's going to be ludicrous, it's going to be crazy. Embrace it. I don't know if there's any other manager who'd be willing to do that at this point. So, yeah, like, outside of just the storyline and wanting to see it, I legitimately think the best course of action, now it could be a fucking disaster, but just the best course of action right now for the organization would be to do that. I feel like, legitimately. I think he's kind of played his way into it.
I would have, like Chris said, Chris actually put that very eloquently, where there's always going to be some story, whether it's positive or negative, usually negative, about the White Sox. And if anybody can embrace it, it's Ozzie Guillen. And like, there are, in any time since 2005, any single time, which has been way too much, there's been a managerial opening for the White Sox. His name obviously comes up. And if you listen to any of the pre and post game shows that he does, which he is awesome at, it's it's good television. It's entertaining. It's funny. It's always changing. He's great at what he does on TV, but you can hear him like very it's not even subtle. If you know how to speak Ozzie's language, which you have to watch him consistently to be able to speak his language, because he will tell you himself, he speaks the most broken English on planet Earth. But he's always kind of lobbying for the White Sox managerial position. You can tell he wants it. And with how shitty this fucking clubhouse, I don't know where it happened, because like, we talked to players, and 2 years ago, these guys were they were boys. They were best friends. I don't know where it went wrong. I would love a tell-all one day. I do think I will get it eventually, but Ozzie Guillen would not allow this. And I know he's, kind of a dinosaur himself at this point. Like, he doesn't give a shit about analytics or he'll bunt. I know that's a big no-no in the modern age, but he's a people person, and he will not accept you not playing 110%. Yoan Moncada would be like Smitty yesterday with Portnoy. The moment he walked into that fucking office, if Yoan Moncada didn't beat him to that office, he's getting dragged publicly. And I do think that that's what a lot of these guys need. I really think so. And next year is a complete lost season anyways, I assume. I just want to have fun watching baseball again. And you'd be entertained with Ozzie Guillen at the helm.
Yeah.
Now, he may suck in the current age. He probably would. And I know that Han and Kenny and I believe even Jerry have all said no fucking chance is Ozzie Guillen managing in this organization again as long as we're around. If they want to get in fans' good graces, that would be a good way to get in like the dumb fans' good graces, because the meathead fans' good graces. But at this point, like, even the analytical guys, and every fan base has the Twitter, nerds that will break down weighted run created pluses of every player dating back to the turn of the century for their organization, and they look at baseball through that prism. I'm kind of a blend of those two groups. I'm fully on board just fucking bring him back and see what happens. Maybe you strike lightning in a bottle again. Maybe he does extract the most talent out of Yoan Moncada and Eloy Jimenez and these other guys that seemingly haven't tapped into that, God-gifted potential that we all thought they had when they were acquired, be it via trade or international signing or whatever, draft. And I do think the clubhouse would be in a much better spot to the point where they would win more games. Now, I don't know I'm sure there'd be plenty of people bitching about his lineup construction. I'm sure anytime he would lay down a sack bunt in later innings, people would lose their fucking minds because math says not to do so. But I do know that there would be accountability in an organization that has shown zero accountability over the since Ricky Renneria, when he would bench guys for not running it out down the line. I would appreciate that at the very least.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I would say that 4 or 5 years ago, I would not have been in agreement on that. But right now, with the way the organization is going, as you brought up, it's a good point. They're not going to be good next year anyway. So, in case of emergency, break glass, hire Ozzie Guillen. Like you said, at least it will be fun. At least it will be entertaining. I think potentially, at least in the short term, he could be a really good bridge guy who kind of helps these young guys, holds them accountable, which is something it seems like has not been the case on the South Side for a while.
Valid points, because I think if especially with where the organization's at, and you consider who would be available to come in and insert and impact culture right away with that organization, the list is short, because what you need from your next manager and what they need to do, step one is, repair a lot of this angst and image and public perception and the effort that goes on in the clubhouse. Like, never mind the quality of the player right now. They're fucking an embarrassment. And what Ozzie would be able to do is get these guys to play a little bit fucking harder. And you have to have a culture shift. A great analogy outside of baseball is, obviously Dan Campbell's become a hot name in the NFL. But if you watched or paid any attention to the Lions beforehand, the love and the passion that guy brings, you kind of understand like what their mantra is or what you're going to get from a Detroit Lion football player. Like Belichick, the same shit with the Patriots and the identity. And the identity is completely lacking with the White Sox. Where you've seen David Ross went through struggles with the Cubs to get his guys. And it doesn't take much. It can take a certain attitude with a good veteran or a good couple veterans. And you see how quickly that stuff can turn. I do think they are super far away, but a great step, honestly, would to be bringing in Ozzie, because I love what you're saying. Mankata's the perfect example. And you just look at that and say, how the fuck has this guy got legitimate MVP talent, but he doesn't even care to bring it? And I'm not even saying he doesn't bring it because he's slumping. He doesn't care that he's not bringing it, and that's what really bothers him. So let's end on this. White Sox Dave, the floor is yours. I'm going to put 60 seconds on the timer. Assume Jerry Reinsdorf watches this. He's a friend of the show. He's not a friend, but he fucking watches this because he's got to learn something every now and then. Send us out with a good message to Jerry and his friends.
All right. I'm not going to do what everybody assumes I'm going to do and demand Jerry Reinsdorf sell the Chicago White Sox. Instead, I'm going to implore him to look at this from 30,000 feet. Now, a couple days ago, he was on the field with, it was randomly Bill Cowher, the old Steelers coach. I don't know why he was at the Sox game, but he was. It was Bill Cowher, Rick Connon, Jerry Reinsdorf. During batting practice, all the press is out there, and like Scott Merkin, Scott Greger, a handful of other guys, they asked Reinsdorf, they're like, hey, do you want to comment on the season? And he just turns around and goes, no. Now, I am not necessarily asking Jerry Reinsdorf to just flip a switch and become the guy that he hates and didn't want to be an owner of a major league organization, Steve Cohen. But I am going to ask him to address the media, address the fan base, and look yourself in the mirror and say, do I want he's 87 years old. He turns 88 in February 26th. I obviously know that for a very specific reason. I won't say that reason. You all know what I'm thinking. On that note, does he want his legacy? Like he's got 6 championships with MJ 30 fucking years ago, and he's got the 2005 championship with the White Sox. So 7 over 80 combined years or so of ownership between the two sports. Should he sell or pass away or no longer own the White Sox for whatever reason? Like, his legacy wouldn't be those championships at all. It would be what you did to gut 2 proud franchises by not hiring correct people and by being so hell-bent and stuck in your ways. Look at yourself in the mirror. Say, hey, I only got a hand. Like, Father Time, and this isn't me being insensitive, Father Time is undefeated.
Right.
At most, he's got a decade or so, 12 years maybe, and by then, he'll probably won't even know his own name. You got a handful of years left on this earth. Make it a lasting fucking image and one that we, as White Sox fan, remember you. Like, all right, that guy, like, it was kind of like the Grinch. His heart grew 3 sizes, and he went and did what was best for the organization to win baseball games. Now, there are the guys on the internet that say that Jerry Reinsdorf loses money on the White Sox every single year. I don't know how money works, like I said. That could very well be true, and he's just, like, waiting on, he like his net worth is what the resale value of the organization would be. But go out and hire a competent front office, one that you just cut the checks for. Give them free reign to go, poach guys from the Rays, the Dodgers. Like, have a new crew of people figure this out. I'm not talking from like the major league standpoint. Even I'm talking the foundation. If you get drafted by the White Sox, if you sign with the White Sox via international free agency, if you sign with them via, undrafted free agent, if no matter what, the day you step into that from low A ball, short season A ball, Dominican Summer League, doesn't matter. This is how we do it here. And that pyramid goes all the way to the top, to the point where it is such a well-oiled machine that all you got to do is anytime that GM or front office exec knocks on your door and says, hey, we need this guy, you go, here you go. Here's the check. Let me know how it goes. That's it. And it's not like that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if a player gets drafted right now, and I'll give a very specific example of this momentarily, gets drafted right now, and hitting coach in low A is telling them something different than when they make it to double A. Like, oh, dude, don't listen to what that guy said. You got to do this. Instead of having like one organizational philosophy on how to hit a baseball or how to pitch a baseball, how to elevate velocity, how to get an extra 2-inch vertical break on a breaking pitch, or, an extra 3 inches of run on a fastball when you're throwing a sinker. Figure out from the ground up. I'm talking about the lowest of low A guys all the way through organizational. So once they do make it to the majors, they just hit the ground running and keep doing what they've been doing the last 3-4 years as they've been developing physically, mentally, whatever, as they ascend to the majors. Then you complement those guys with blue chip free agents. You get I don't even need a new baseball stadium. I love Sox Park. And you do it the right way instead of this patchwork, how many millions and millions, like for a guy that hates wasting money and is always worried about bad contracts, how many millions and millions of dollars has he wasted on over the hill guys in the twilight of their career, where it's like, all right, we'll pay you $5 million for 1 year, Josh Harrison, to come play second base. And then they got to DFA him 2 months into the season. Like, you have to look yourself in the face and say, I have to change this right now. Otherwise, I am going to go to the grave as one of the most hated dudes in Chicago sports history, in spite of those MJ years, in spite of that 2005. Because that's what it's going to be. No one's going to say a fucking thing about MJ or Paul Konerko. It's going to be like, you remember that dumpster fire that was the 2010 through 2028 White Sox? Because that's what it'll be. And
they won in spite of them.
I wish the players had the balls to do that. But they don't. So I'll end on that. And I was going to say this, actually. So a friend of mine that used to play for the White Sox, I'm not going to say his name. He goes by the name of Danny Mendick. He shot me a call. I was at the dog park. This is in the summer of 2021. And he was up and down between Charlotte and Chicago that summer. And he called me and explained something. So Charlotte and Durham, North Carolina, are real close to each other. And Durham's where the Durham Bulls play, the Rays AAA organization. And so a lot of the players will intermingle, like go to bars together, and exactly what I said. So from the moment it doesn't matter if you're like, you didn't have a signing bonus, if you were a, 48th rounder, you get there and they say, this is how you hit a baseball and this is how you pitch a baseball. And you're going to do this for the next 4 years. And if you can't master this, then you're gone. But every single day after games, it's mandatory it doesn't matter if you're the 26th man on the low A roster, you're mandatory 2 hours game film watch. And it goes that the entire way up to Tampa Bay. White Sox, it's not like that. The game's over, you're hitting the bars. It doesn't matter if you're low A, major league, doesn't matter. So you want a nice juxtaposition between a quality organization and a bad organization. There's an example.
Yeah, the White Sox are, honestly, at this point, when we talked to this, we're considering Ozzie Guillen as like the right first step. They are very very far away. And as Dave's alluding to, it all starts top down, like some of the great organizations, like you see it with the ownership groups. We talked about the Mariners earlier. They've got a really unique ownership group of guys that bought it from Nintendo, came together, local Seattle business owners. They come in all these different shapes, sizes, forms. Obviously, Castellani, I know for a fact you wish you had, a little bit better ownership. A little bit,
Yeah, a lot better.
But
yes.
I think you're also realistic that it could be a lot worse. You look around baseball, there's a lot worse owners, even though things could be better for you. And I think a lot of baseball fans, should get that sentiment listening to White Sox Dave today. However mad you are at your owner, Dave's at the bottom. Dave's just a step above an Angelos and a fucking
no, he's the worst owner in baseball.
You're a step above an Angelos. You're a little bit above an Angelos or a Bob Nutting. You're a little bit. Like when I say a little bit, you're 28th, maybe 29th. So
yeah.
Keep that in mind, guys. It could always be. You could be a White Sox fan
and a Northwestern fan.
All right, Dave. That's a completely
both of
show.
my two favorite teams are I can't watch them out of principle right now.
Castellani, you got a big series this weekend. Give me a preview on the way out. It's Friday. This is the Barstool Baseball Show. I know everyone who's watching this on YouTube is already subscribed. Thank you for doing so. Castellani, a little positive thing, something I can look forward to.
For the Tigers, we the Twins can't beat us for some reason. We just took 3 out of 4.
Take whatever the fuck you want to take.
Anything, dude. This has been one of the best baseball years of recent memory. It's pick and choose. I think we got some awesome divisional races. You have the greatest player in the world, maybe ever, going to work on a nightly basis. Baseball's the one thing that keeps me positive. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think there is, outside of the Tigers, I don't think there is negativity when baseball's on. There's always something good going on. You just got to find the outlet. So yeah, I would say all in all, we are reaching that point in the year. Everyone's kind of separated themselves. We know the contenders from the pretenders. There's a lot of fun races right now, a lot of fun teams to watch. I think this is positive, and I know they won today. I'm curious to see if the curse of Kevin Brown is a real thing, because when it comes to the Orioles, because if they slide a little bit here, that becomes more of a storyline. It's already one of the weirdest stories of baseball all year. I want to see. They did just lose 2 out of 3, including Felix Bautista blowing a save. That's if there's ever a sign something is cursed, that might be it. So yeah, tons of stuff to be positive about in the baseball.
Yeah, great stuff on Ohtani, even though the Angels are completely falling apart. Enjoy your Ohtani games when you can. Good West night viewing. Dave, thanks again for joining the show. And sincerely, it's a bad situation for the White Sox. Nobody likes to see a classic baseball guy like you this down, and hopefully there's some rectifying changes in the future. Again, guys, subscribe on YouTube. Appreciate for everybody tuning in. We're going to be back on Monday with a fresh slate of power rankings and maybe some more controversy. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.